Before we get going, I just wanted to let you know that I did finally release my how-to guide on sculpting a realistic Spinosaurus in Blender. If you would like to check that out, I would greatly appreciate it. I think you would be able to get a lot out of this course. Let's go ahead and dive into part 5, extra features. Okay, so let's go ahead and hop back into it. So what we want to do is go ahead now and enable the subdivision, and we're just going to work with the subdivision level of 1. And anywhere that you can see the silhouette kind of poking through, we're going to destructively go ahead and move the vertices around to kind of cover that. So go ahead and do that now. What I might do is actually just pull this vertex up on the Z. Grab this one, pull it through. All right, so we're just kind of tweaking the way things are looking now. So I'm going to go ahead and get under this fin, pull this up on the Z. I'm going to go ahead and disable X-ray. Really pull that up. And we'll get to the bottom, this belly, and pull this up as well. One other thing I forgot to do in the previous lesson is I'm going to go ahead and just put in another loop cut here. I forgot to inset it, so we're just going to go ahead and pull this in on the X, down on the Z, until we have something like this. Let's make sure this looks okay. So maybe that's a bit too much. So what I'll do is just grab these vertices, GX, and I'll go ahead and disable that back one. Let's go ahead and grab this entire edge loop and pull it down on the Z until we have something like that. So now it's a little bit more isolated. All right, so with this top part of the fin, what I'm going to do is select those top faces, and I'll select the bottom. What I'll do is do a Control V, and I'll just go ahead and smooth them. Maybe turn down the strength, something like that. And we're definitely going to want to pull these in as well. So what I'll do is select these outer faces, pull them in on the X. I'm going to go ahead and enable proportional editing. All right, so now I'll just manually go in here and move them in. Could also enable this on cage so you can see a little bit better what's going on. It's up to you if you'd like to enable that. All right, so I'm going to hop down here. And again, just kind of fixing things up. Now we're definitely straying away from that box mesh we had created, so just keep that in mind, that things are going to look really strange if you disable your subdivision. All right, so I'm going to select these faces, or these verts, and I'll just go ahead and do some manual adjustment. All right, so maybe right about here, all the way through, I might do a GG just to edge slide and see what that looks like. Might be a little bit too much, so I'll go ahead and undo that. And this bottom vertex, I am going to pull this one down. Same with this one. All right, hopping up to this dorsal fin. And we have some issues going on here, probably with the mirror. I guess that one was pulled a little bit lower on the Z axis. Alright, so let's go ahead and grab this now. Let's make sure everything's looking okay. I might pull this up one more time on the Z. So we have something like this. And let's go ahead and grab once more. And this vertex, we can have that transition a little bit better. Let's check this back one. Probably do a little edge slide for that one. Alright, so this fin here, I actually have this image. It's called the pelvic fin. So let's go ahead and fix this one up if we need. I think what I'll do is grab these two vertices and pull them in. And you can see we're pretty far off that blueprint, but that's okay. We can try this one more time where we actually grab these vertices. Maybe I'll enable proportional editing. Kind of twist them in like that. And you can see that they're just not lining up, so that's okay. Not going to worry about that too much. Okay, so we have something like that. Let's go ahead and check our front one here. So maybe with this front one we want to add in another edge loop, and let's go ahead and move it a little bit closer to the shoulder. What we'll do is we'll scale it down without proportional editing. And I actually want to scale up towards, say, this top vertex. So I'm going to change this to active element, do an S and Z. And we can actually probably do the same thing with this fin. Same thing, kind of click it in here and do an S and Z. Alright, so that's looking pretty good. Let's go ahead and check out our rostrum. I believe it's called the rostrum. It's kind of like this little blade we have here. And I think I'd like to actually scale this down on the Z so it's not so thick. So I'm going to disable active element for now. So something like that should be fine. And right about here is where the eyeball is going to sit. So what I might do is actually get this and move it back a little bit. Maybe somewhere there. I'll do a Control B. And this face right about here is where we're going to do some sort of inset. Now this is looking rather flat, which is, you know, lining up with the blueprint, but what I might do is actually grab, let's just say this edge to about here. Just go ahead and pull it up on the Z a little bit like that. And we can just enable proportional editing and move everything else down. So do a GZ. So we have something like that. Let's do the same thing here. Okay, so be sure to look at your Onchopristis at different angles. Hit 5 on your numpad to view it in orthographic perspective, just to preview how things are kind of panning out. Maybe I'll fix a little bit under here. So what I'll do is tab into edit mode. And we might have pulled this up too much. So what I'll do is do a G and Z. Pull that down. And of course, when we apply this subdivision, we can go ahead and later tweak some of these. Okay, so something like that is working just fine for us. Now let's go ahead and think about where the eyeball is going to go. So I'm going to go ahead and hit H, and you can see the eyeball is going to go right here. So what I'm going to do is just get the annotate tool, and I'm just going to draw an horrible looking eye, but that'll work. All right, so right about here. Now what we want to do is probably move some of these verts in. So I'll do a GX, kind of squish these in a little bit. Let's see how we're looking in the top perspective. You can actually see that these vertices need to get pulled out a little bit more. So what I think we actually might do is apply the subdivision before we start adding in the eyeball. One thing we could do right away though is we have the mouth that we need to add in, and that's this little guy here. So we see that we have the eyeball here and the mouth is just directly under it. So I'm going to hop into the right perspective, and I'm just going to select a face underneath, and you can see we have these faces selected. One of them is to do with the mirror. So we're just going to work off of that because I think that's a good spot. So we're just going to go ahead and inset, just like so. And we're just going to go ahead and extrude that in. Now, if that's too much, I don't think that's actually going to work for us. I'm going to go ahead and pull these edges away a little bit from each other. All right, I'm going to disable subdivision, and things are going to look a little bit crazy, but that's okay. We're just insetting. Make sure you have B for boundary enabled. Okay, so something like that. Let's just go ahead and extrude up, like so. All right, so I'm going to re-enable subdivision. All right, so that's a big mouth. I'm going to go ahead and disable subdivision, and we're just going to go ahead and scale these towards each other, these two faces. Doesn't need to be quite as large. You can see in some of these photos the mouth is open, the mouth is closed. So we might leave the mouth a little bit open. Be like that, should be fine. All right, so let's re-enable our subdivision. And we'll come back to the mouth if we need to. We could also maybe grab these two faces, inset, and extrude. All right, so now we're extruding inside of the body. And we can go ahead and also grab the smooth tool and kind of create a little bit of a circle with that. You could also smooth the verts. All right, we don't need to go super crazy with the inside of the mouth. You'll never see it. But that's what that's going to look like, and you can re-enable your subdivision. All right, so let's go ahead and save that. And one other thing we can make are these little like nose nostrils. And I believe that's called the spiracle. You have to excuse my pronunciation. I'm like really bad with it. Be a horrible teacher. The spiracles, and I guess it allows the Onchopristis to breathe without moving. So you can see this one right here. We're actually just going to model this one on the bottom of the part of the body right next to the mouth. So again, this is going to be probably right about here. So I'm going to disable the subdivision. I'm just going to inset, and actually we're going to hit I one more time to inset separately. We're not going to use a boundary. And actually I'm going to just get the smooth tool and just kind of make a bit of a better square. And we'll just go ahead and rotate. Actually, what I'll do is grab these two edges and just scale in the X. I'm going to want to do that separately. So let me try and enable individual origins. Okay. So something like that will be perfect for us. And let's just go ahead and extrude, scale. And now we have something like this. All right, so let's re-enable our subdivision. And now we have something like this going on, which is fine. And if that looks a little bit too close, which it might be, I'm going to go ahead and move it up one more. So same steps. SX. And let's go ahead and move these a little bit closer to each other. So we'll do medium point, SX. And let's just scale all of this down. SX to pull it apart. SY. All right, one thing we can actually do here is smooth these vertices. All right, so now let's go ahead and grab this square, do an extrusion and scale, hop into the right perspective. We can do something like this, should work just fine. All right, so let's go ahead and save that now. Let's re-enable our subdivision. And now you can see we have something like this going on, which will work just fine for our use case. So I'm going to pull these vertices out just a touch, GX. All right, so that's perfect. Okay, so we're going to leave this video off here, and we'll go ahead and pick it up in the next lesson. In the next lesson, we're going to go ahead and apply the subdivision and add in our eyeball. So awesome work, and I will see you there.